This is breaking news.
Right now, Governor Kathy Hochul is joined by the MTA.
Other initiatives, such as the fact that our budget, and I thank our legislators, my partners in state government, for approving a $4.2 billion Clean Water, Clean Air, Green Jobs, Environmental Bond Act, which is critically important to our energy future. But within that includes over $500 million to electrify school buses. So we need to get the word out to everyone across the state. We'll need their support in November for this literally game changer as we talk about having the resources to take care of Mother Earth the way it should have always been taken care of. We also have nation-leading investments in offshore wind, $500 million to ensure that Long Island for sure is the epicenter of the offshore wind movement. And also we have the largest ever investment in the Environmental Protection Fund in our budget. And just 2 weeks ago, just last week, our regulators gave approval to 2 transformative projects that we're going to do simultaneously, 2 mega energy projects to bring wind, solar, and hydropower directly to New York City and cut the fossil power plants use in half by 2020, the end of 2020. So that's ambitious as well. On top of that, we're making sure that all passenger vehicles sold in New York be zero emissions by 2035 and help our electrification and our support for the electric vehicle industry. We're investing $1 billion in electric vehicle infrastructure. So we're pulling out all the stops, not just at bus stops, but everywhere we can to ensure that we're not leaving any stone unturned in terms of finding ways that we can improve the environment for the future. So today we're very proud to announce that our buses are a part of that energy future. And we are going to be, MTA will be deploying 60 zero-emission electric vehicles across the city. We'll have that in place by the end of the year. And this is all part of MTA's massive equipment to deploy a zero-emission bus fleet by 2040, and on top of our historic $1.1 billion in funding to buy another 500 electric buses. This is extraordinary. No other city is making this level of commitment. We're doing it right here in the state. And new buses will begin arriving over the next year at Grand Avenue, Queens, Charleston, Staten Island, East New York and Brooklyn, Kingsbridge in the Bronx, the Michael J. Quill Manhattan location, and Jamaica, Queens. So we're excited about this. We want to make sure that we reduce our carbon footprint. At the same time, we're creating new jobs with the energy infrastructure. These buses are built, assembled here in the state of New York, in Jamestown. I've been there, I've visited, and I want to thank all of our leaders in the legislature, including Transportation Chair in the Senate, Senator Tim Kennedy, who hails from Western New York, who ensures that we're focusing on this as well. So I would like to ask Jana Lieber to talk about what we're continuing to do, our investments, and why it's so important here on Earth Day to be on top of this rooftop to talk about the energy revolution that is unfolding right here and on our streets. And our passengers will be part of knowing that they're doing everything they can in their power to ensure that we're making sure that the future is better for our children and grandchildren. So again, happy Earth Day, everybody. Jana Lieber, our incredible leader of the MTA.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for your incredible leadership on the environment and so many other things. We're thrilled to celebrate Earth Day with you. It's a special honor. At the MTA, we like to think that every day is Earth Day because mass transit is the antidote to climate change. Every year, our services prevent emissions of a net 17 million metric tons of greenhouse gases. That's 3 times the annual emissions of the city of San Francisco. It's why New Yorkers, it's counterintuitive for so many people, but New York is the greenest place in America because we have the lowest carbon footprint per capita in the entire country. Today's announcement is an exciting chance for us to take these reductions to a new level. Deploying zero-emissions buses to communities disproportionately impacted by high asthma rates and poor air quality is a double win for the environment and for equity. And you heard the governor list those depots where these electric buses are headed, these zero-emissions buses. This is exactly the kind of investment that New York, under Governor Hochul, is making to build back better at a critical moment for the city, the state, and the nation. We're serious about delivering on the goal of a zero-emissions fleet by 2040. The MTA already has electric buses in operation, and our historic capital program, the governor mentioned, has $1.1 billion in funding for more electric buses, and importantly, for charging infrastructure. My colleague Jamie Torres Springer is here, and part of the key to really making good on zero emissions as a vision is to have the charging infrastructure here in all the depots, and we're actually moving very quickly on that. So as we order these new buses, there's a whole industry of upstate businesses. The governor mentioned that these buses are going to be assembled in Jamestown. That's great news for upstate, for the entire state. And we know we'll get a love letter from Senator Kennedy, who focuses us all the time on the fact that the MTA capital program can be and should be and is good for the entire state. The administration, the Biden administration, has made it clear that climate change, as well as accessibility and equity, are the key priorities, and that is reflected in the Biden federal infrastructure legislation. There are special categories for priorities, and I mentioned a few of them, but one of them is zero emissions buses. And just like everything in that bill, we are going to be going hard at these competitive grant programs to make sure that we take full advantage for New York, and especially that we use the Biden infrastructure bill, which Senator Schumer did so much to help bring about, to achieve a greener New York and especially a clean bus system for all our New Yorkers. So thank you again, Governor. And with that, let me turn it over to my partner, Craig Cipriano.
Thank you, Jano, and thank you, Governor. So our work with electric buses over the last few years has shown that zero-emission buses are viable, and that there's more work to be done. There is more work for us to do. But we can indeed transition to a truly zero-emission 6,000 bus fleet right here in New York. Modernizing our infrastructure in the same way will have far-reaching impacts that can help address social equity and climate change. The 6 depots chosen for these deployments were selected because residents in those communities and in those areas served by our buses struggle with public health impacts like asthma at a higher rate than elsewhere in the city. These new 60 buses and the many more yet to come will begin purchasing only electric buses in 2029. And it will help to significantly improve air quality, and I can't wait to get them on the road, combined with these 15 we already have. And also, I'd be remiss if we don't talk about our over 1,300 bus fleet of hybrid electric buses, 400 of which can be operated in a zero emissions mode. This new deployment announced today has several major milestones for MTA. It's our first agency-owned standard 40-foot electric bus, the first in-depot pantograph chargers, our first partnership with the New York Power Authority to manage charger installation, and our first partnership with a power company to install new power. It's clear that an unprecedented amount of cooperation is going to be required in the coming years to bring this program to fruition. We're going to be doubling down our partnership with New York Power Authority and Con Ed, 2 agencies that are so critical to bring this to fruition. And now I'd like to turn it over to Doreen Harris, President and CEO of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and happy Earth Day. I'm Doreen Harris, the President and CEO of NYSERDA, and I find it very fitting that Mother Nature has provided us with such a lovely day today to celebrate Earth Day and what I would view as the leadership of the MTA with this milestone that we're announcing today. And that's really what it's all about. These electric buses reflect our strong commitment to hit this challenge head-on by all agencies, by all of government, and certainly for the benefit of all New Yorkers. And so I want to commend the MTA on the commitment that they are making today and the realization of that commitment. And certainly want to thank Governor Hochul for her leadership in both advancing our Climate Act and also really addressing climate change head-on. So when I think about today, I think about the collective whole of government working together to not only make a brighter future for New Yorkers, but also to accelerate our change, the transformation that will benefit each of us. And as the co-chair of our Climate Action Council, I can tell you this is what we're here to do. We're here to not only celebrate Earth Day, but protect our Earth and address actions together that will not only benefit New York, but the world at large. So thank you, happy Earth Day, and I'll hand it over to Julie Tai with the League of Conservation Voters.
Thank you. Good morning. Happy Earth Day, everyone. I'm wearing green every day, just so we're all clear. My name is Julie Tai, and I'm president of the New York League of Conservation Voters. I'm excited to be here today. I want to thank Governor Hochul in particular for your leadership on electric school buses, and we look forward to talking about that more. But we're really happy to be here to talk about electric transit buses, which are so critical, with Jana Lieber and Craig Cipriani and your leadership at the MTA, with Doreen and all the work you're doing at NYSERDA. I think I talk to Doreen about every week, at least, to NYPA, and to so many more. I think, Governor, you hit the nail on the head. We can't just talk about goals. We can't just have goals that are on law and on paper. We need to deliver on our goals. That's why we're so excited to see the administration last week approve the 2 Tier 4 projects to bring clean energy to New York City, and why it's so important that we're here to see these buses come to reality here at the MTA. Because we cannot tackle the climate crisis without tackling transportation pollution and investing in mass transit. Transportation is the #2 source of greenhouse gas emissions, and as we've already talked about, it's a major source of air pollution. We cannot only rely on electrifying personal vehicles. We need to move to clean fuels. We need to implement congestion pricing. We need many, many more miles of bus lanes, which I know we're working on with the city, and we need to go electric. You know, we've talked about this already, how important it is for equity to have a real investment in buses. They connect our communities and they provide transit accessible to so many people. That's why we at the League have been advocating for electrifying transit buses and school buses and government fleets. Asthma is the leading cause of school absences, and reducing air pollution in communities that house bus depots is critical to improve the public health of our neighbors and keep our kids in school. Communities that house those bus depots see a disproportionate amount of traffic and air pollution, so we're really excited at the choices you've selected in making sure they're going to those communities disproportionately served. 1 in 10 children in New York have asthma, but 1 in 4 New York City children in environmental justice communities have asthma. So it's clear that electrifying these buses will reduce our air pollution and confront environmental justice, so that we're taking action to protect public health as well as fighting climate change. So thank you so much again for supporting the $4.2 billion Clean Water, Clean Air, and Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act. We'll be talking to all of you in the press about that a lot more as the Vote Yes for New Yorkers and Clean Water Jobs campaign picks up. And we're excited for the funding coming from Washington. And thank you so much for making this commitment come to reality. We look forward to seeing the whole fleet be electric in the future. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining us for this important announcement. Any on-topic questions first? All right, I guess we are crystal clear. Okay.
Hi, Governor.
Okay.
A few dozen electric buses, fine and dandy. Congestion pricing launching would obviously go a lot longer in fighting climate change. I have 2 questions on that. The draft environmental assessment for congestion pricing was due to the feds, I think, in March. I want to know if that's been submitted. And the question for you is, do you want federal approval of congestion pricing before November's election? Is that something you support?
None of this has been timed with an election, so that's an irrelevant dynamic here. There is a process that needs to be played out. When I first became governor, I asked them to expedite the process. When I was told that the next step would take possibly 2 years, I said, why not 18 months? How do we shave more time off this process? So I have supported this from the beginning. Jan, if you want to give an update on what's been submitted already.
Sure. To answer your question, there was a submission to the feds. Their comments came back, and now we are working through these 300+ technical comments from federal agencies so that we can put out a document to the public and then have that second phase of outreach and public discussion contemporaneous with the impaneling of the Traffic Mobility Review Board, which is going to review the exemptions and the discounts and so on and so on. So it's a really, really, really complicated process, but it is moving forward.
Anything else? All right.
Hey, Governor, and thanks for coming out today. There was a lot of criticism from environmental groups over the gas tax suspension that eventually passed as part of the budget. Obviously, prices are still high, and I'm wondering if you see an opportunity as we talk about climate change and ways that we can clear up emissions to get more people onto regional rail specifically. I know buses are one part of the bigger picture here, so I'm kind of wondering how you hope to work with the MTA to help address the ridership gap that currently exists on the Long Island Railroad and Metro North.
No, we are working very hard to, first of all, make people feel safe on the subways, which is an important dynamic in getting them that sense of wanting to come back and use public transit. It's been a challenge, but we're working very hard, working with our local partners here in the city, so it's a safety issue, first of all. And also, when you think about the gas tax, looking at it from the perspective of an area that has widely accessible public transit is one dynamic, but there's an entire state where it's not even available to them. People, their lifeline, the only way they get to their jobs and to schools and to whatever else, what other activities they want to undertake, once you leave a concentrated area like New York City or our densely populated urban areas like Syracuse, Rochester, Albany, most of the landmass of the state, people don't even have that as an option. So those are the ones that are being hit the hardest by this increase in taxes or increase in gas prices at the pump. And we're just trying through a temporary measure, trying to give people a little bit of a break on top of middle-class tax cuts and property tax. It's one more area we can help put money back in consumers' pockets who are just taking it on the chin every single day when the prices at the pump keep going up. So it is a 16-cent per gallon suspension. It doesn't start until the summer when the higher gas prices normally kick in, and it ends at the end of this year. But that was a balancing of interests. Obviously, you can hear from our announcements, not just today, but throughout the year, that we are 1,000% committed to protecting the environment. I know that there's groups that understand that depth of commitment, but also you have to balance the needs of a large population that can't even take advantage of public transit options.
You also protected public transit.
For the governor and/or Jano, recently several members of Congress wrote a letter to the MTA asking for answers about the surveillance cameras in subway stations after the subway shooting. They wanted to know how much federal money is spent on cameras, how often the cameras are audited, and if there's a timeline for any of these issues being addressed. Any update on that?
And Jano will answer that, but I also just want to say I understand the concern. I'm a former member of Congress. People have questions. They'll get the answers they need. That's important. People need to feel safe and secure, and we can always strive to do better. And I appreciate the leadership of the MTA, who you'll hear from in a second, on this very issue. But this is an important issue to get it right.
So actually, we welcome that letter because it gives us an opportunity to clarify a lot of what I think maybe some lack of clarity coming out of last week. Number one, the first thing I would refer everybody who's looking at this issue to the police department statement the day after the event. What the police department pointed out is that there were 36 separate videos that we worked with them on. We have 10,000 cameras system-wide. We have 600 cameras just on the N line in Brooklyn, on 36 separate video perspectives that they looked at on the day of the event, and many of those, we had several images of the suspect. Getting on the train, getting off the train, riding a bus, and so on. We had MetroCard data, so we worked intensely with the police supporting that based on those camera resources. And the story of the cameras at the MTA is pretty amazing. We have gone up by like 60% in a few short years because we decided to make it a priority. Nobody sent us a pile of additional money to do it. We made it a priority, so we made it a goal to have a camera in every station, and we got there in a few short years. Cost us hundreds of millions of dollars, and we did. The so-called the failure rate, which is what became the topic of this event, is about 1%. There are some additional outages that are scheduled because we have work and we have to take down the comm system. But the 1% rate, as the NYPD emphasized, is at the very bottom, the lowest of any agency that they work with. We field 30 to 50 requests for video from the NYPD every day. Incredible back and forth, leads to the arrest and identification of hundreds of suspects, and it's a very positive story. On the congressional side, what we will be telling them is, hey, we're thrilled at the idea that there's more money from Congress for this purpose and other transportation safety, because I don't know whether folks are aware, but that category of funding has dramatically dropped in recent years. So while we were investing in cameras, Congress, the federal investment in transportation security had been going down, and we'll raise that as well in our response to the letter.
Way of the investigation at all, to your knowledge?
As the police said, again, I refer you back to the NYPD statement, which said specifically, no, it did not hamper the investigation. Take a look.